Episode 1 actually has a few different basketball concepts that we talk about. Episode 2 is a little more granular, a little more X and O. But Episode 1, we do talk about thumb down. What is thumb down? Thumb down is simply a high screen and roll, a high pick and roll. Thumb down angle, which LeBron references, is just when that pick and roll is angled to a side of the floor. So it's not in the center of the floor. It's either in that left high quadrant or that right high quadrant, closer to the sideline. So thumb down angle would simply be a ball handler with the ball, a player in either corner, another player in the high quadrant opposite the ball, and then the screener. And again, these two guys can play pick and roll, and you play out of that. By the way, a lot of teams call high pick and roll something different. Not every team calls it thumb down. I know when I played for Stan Van Gundy and the Orlando Magic, we had thumb down, which was a high screen and roll with the 5-man, the center. We also had a screen and roll called thumb up, which was with the 4-man. LeBron, by the way, will reference X4 and X5. Some teams call the 4-man X4. Some teams just call him 4. Some teams call the 5-man X5. Some teams call the 5-man just 5. Horn's chest is another play that we talk about. Horn's chest is when Horn's chest is when two offensive players are in both corners, and then two offensive players are directly above the elbow or free throw line area at the three-point line, creating almost like a horns. And then the point guard plays off of that. So the point guard can dribble off either side. The point guard can also throw the ball to one of the players at the horns, and they can get into screening action. This is horns, very simple. Ball handler, player in either corner, and then two players up here. A lot of times, this guy will be the 5-man, this guy will be the ball handler, and this guy will be the scorer or the shooter. Boston Celtics, by the way, when they run their horns action, a lot of times the 5-man is spaced to one of these corners, and they involve Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and either Drew Holiday or Derek White. Horn's chest is a very simple play. So let's say this is LeBron, and this is D'Angelo right here, and this is the X5, this is the 5-man. D'Angelo would dribble off of a LeBron screen right here, and then the 5-man would then set a chest screen or a flare screen for LeBron to this side. And that's ultimately where the ball would go. Another play we talk about is floppy, which is a play that I ran all the time. I'm not actually sure why it's called floppy. I do know that the visual for floppy was this. So I think floppy means you can basically go to either side. Floppy is when a catch and shoot offensive player goes underneath the basket, and there's two bigs, one on either side, that can screen for him, and he looks to come off of screens on either side and catch and shoot the ball. This is just a simple floppy action. So you have the two bigs. Let's say this is the 5-man, this is the 4-man, this is the point guard, and then you have the two wing players underneath the basket. And let's say that 2 is the shooter. He can come off either side for a catch and shoot. He could also come off the 5-man, catch and shoot. And honestly, this is going to get a little discombobulated. I know when I played with Matt Barnes in Philly, we would just dance in circles in here, and then I'd shoot out one of these sides. When I think about the game of basketball, I regard it as so important. I care for it. I love it. I want to pay attention to it. I want to learn more about it. The game is constantly evolving. And hopefully, these discussions and conversations that LeBron and I have, sometimes with other basketball players and basketball people, hopefully we can do that. Hopefully we can teach and explain and celebrate. Hopefully we can mind the game. And as a player, I felt that. As a broadcaster now, where I'm calling games, you have such a good feel as like an outside observer of this action happening. So, end of the second quarter, you're going into halftime with the lead. You've established, let's say, a pick and roll partnership where you're getting a good shot every time down the floor. On the other end, you're getting stops. you're getting stopped. So the other team's having, why are you, you're right. Why are you going to just jack up a 35-footer? Just go to the pick and roll, rely on your defense. Now, boom, you go into the half with essentially the same momentum you would have if you get the 2-for-1.
Yeah.
By the way, you shouted out your coaches. I want to say this. It's a dead game. You know your team is, I call it like letting go of the rope. You know, Doc Rivers used to always say that. Don't let go of the rope.
Yeah.
What goes through your mind?
You probably got a few minutes to try to change it, or you're gonna get pulled. Knowing it's a back-to-back, knowing that okay, we lose to the Clippers, we got our ass kicked, okay, but we can't then the very next night lose to Washington as well. So I go out there at down 19, you know, with the lineup. I believe at the start of the fourth lineup was myself, D'Lo, Jackson Hayes, Taurean Prince, Cam Reddish. So, you know, coach drew up a play. First play, I believe it draws up Horn's chest, and they fucked up. They fucked up on the Horn's chest. So we ran it again. And that's another thing that bothers me about the NBA too. Why do we not continue just run the same thing over and over until they stop it? Guys would run a play one time, they would score, and then they'd change the play. But anyways, we ran it again, and they fucked it up again. So, I mean, for me, if I see 2 threes go down, I'm going to check and see if it's a heater in this right elbow for sure. And I hit another one. And at this point, now I'm feeling really good. I got a nice bounce in my step. We're getting stops, and you know, I take one down the right wing, and PJ's picking me up in transition. And I rarely shoot the ball on the run, you know, especially if the ball's in my right hand. I rarely shoot it. But I had a bounce and I had a feeling. I felt like I said, if I can make this one go, I know. This is when like NBA Jam, you're on fire. You know, if this one goes, yeah. And I let that one go from the right wing by their bench. So I kind of almost bumped into T-Lou, and they called a timeout. That's when I knew that the momentum could change. You know, the momentum can change, and and I let that one go from the right wing by their bench. So I kind of almost bumped into T-Lou, and they called a timeout. That's when I knew that the momentum could change. You know, the momentum can change, and once the ball, the snowball gets going down that hill, you know, the snowball turns into the avalanche, and the avalanche just turns into it's over with. You know, so I just felt good at that moment.
It's a few things there. Think back to early in your career. I came in the league in 06, 07. I played no minutes my first 2 years.
Yeah.
But you know what? If we had a 19-point lead going into the fourth, I might get all 12 minutes of garbage time.
For sure.
People would clear their benches.
Yeah, for sure.
This was 15 years ago.
For sure.
People would clear their benches with a 17-point lead in the fourth and 9 minutes to go.
For sure.
You can't do that anymore.
You can't do that anymore. You know why? Because I believe in 08, 09, or whenever that little light-skinned fucker came in the league, that's in Golden State, he changed that whole narrative. He did. He single-handedly changed the no lead is safe. It's like Pat Mahomes right now.
It's interesting you bring up Steph because I think there's
Love that guy.
a long history of
Steph.
Great players that have impacted the game.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see a lineage between different skill sets, right? Michael to Kobe, right? You can see that.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's been a player that has influenced the game more than Steph. And you can certainly point to like Harden for sure in that era, Damian Lillard for sure. But you're right, it started with Steph.
When it comes to influence, since I've been watching the game, the most influence on the game. And obviously we know what Mike did for the game.
Sure.
You know, well, Steph and Allen Iverson are the two biggest influential guys in our game since I've been watching and covering it.
The details thing for ESPN.
Yeah.
During that finals, and I did Clay was the first episode, Steph was the second episode, Tatum was the third, and so I had all these Tatum clips I got to go through and break down. I don't never watch the episode. It's behind a paywall. But What I saw was on the isolations on the wing.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times would be in the slot,
Yep.
the high quad,
Yep.
right? And they've given him space. They would bring that low man over early. Sometimes it was Draymond,
Yep.
but not always.
Not always.
Sometimes it was Clay.
Yep.
And very rarely did he end up getting the Golden State Warriors into rotation.
Yeah.
Now it feels like he's just making the play off the ball. Now it did happen a couple times in that finals,
Yeah.
but it wasn't as quick.
Right.
And it was rare.
Yeah.
And obviously with their personnel, like it's different now
Yeah.
with Porzingis, but I think that's part of like the growth. So
That's part of the
even
growth.
going back to like the question about can you teach basketball IQ? In some ways, it's innate,
Right.
but in some ways, if you're studying it and doing it, you can see the growth in a player.
Yeah, because there's a great saying that says the best teacher in life is experience as well. And we look at Tate. I mean, he's 25 years old. He's 25 years old, and I believe he's been to the conference finals 4 times.
Basketball IQ, to me, when you were earlier than me, when I first got in the NBA, though, what that meant to me in some ways was being able to remember a play. Honestly, as simple as that. Being able to recognize patterns.
Yeah.
You come out of an ATO, okay,
Oh my God.
there's a misdirection here. I know there's going to be a pin down coming, right? It's just,
Right.
that's pattern recognition.
Yeah.
Offensively, defensively, it's just making the right read.
Yeah. Making the right read.
Knowing the game plan, like all that. That's basketball IQ. I think what's interesting about today's NBA is what smart coaches do and what smart players do, which did not happen when I first got to the NBA. Nearly every possession, all you're doing is trying to find the right matchup.
A target.
You're playing chess on the possession.
Target basketball. Yeah.
And that to me is the biggest difference.
Yeah. That never happened.
Bro, I was watching a game. I was calling a game, actually. Guy had the ball. Good offensive player. Had the ball at the top of the key. And they're playing the Clippers. And end of the shot clock, 7 on the clock. Another guy off the ball is being guarded by Kawhi Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes up to set a pick and roll for the guy with the ball.
And it makes no sense.
And I'm like, that's just low basketball IQ.
That's just low basketball IQ.
Keep Kawhi away from the
That is
ball.
low basketball IQ. That is low basketball IQ. That doesn't make any sense. And that happens a lot in our. And I'm going to go back to when you first started it. You said remembering a play. How many guys fuck up a play out of timeout burns me alive? It burns me alive that a coach can sit there and guys, all 5 guys, 10 eyes, are looking at the play and they come out of timeout, fuck it up. Bothers me so bad. But yeah, like you said, you knew, like when you played, you had 2 reads. I'm coming off left, right, and if the big is not up, I'm shooting that bitch. And if the big is up, I'm pocket passing.
Yeah.
What else are we talking about?
Well, the one other thing, sometimes the big would be back, right? And I'd get the stun off the
And you
passer.
get the stall off the pass.
So like when I played in Philly, they would do that off Ben, and then I would just kick to Ben, and he's got a head of steam going down the lane.
Well, I mean,
right?
and when Ben
You gotta,
was in the
you gotta read the nail guy too.
you gotta read the nail guy.
I don't kind of like underestimate.
Well, that's not. Well, that's not.
reads.
Well,
Come on, man.
well, yes,
Come
I
on,
agree.
man.
I agree. I was more thinking with the Clippers. I was thinking
Yeah,
more with the
okay,
Clippers.
okay.
Pocket to.
It's so weird though because even like the coverage on catch and shoot stuff, and there's not a ton of catch and shoot guys
Right.
anymore. Where like you're not running floppy. That doesn't happen a lot.
yeah.
But like when I first started running it, or like Ray in Boston,
Right. Yeah.
when your team started playing more drop coverage, they just kept the big back and catch and shoot.
Right.
And so a lot of times that help would actually come off the passer. So
Right.
if they knew we were in a catch and shoot play, kick to me, the help comes off the passer. Then it's
Right.
I got to make that read back to the top.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, because now offense is so more extended now. You know, the big could be the guy that can help up a little bit because, if you look at like Rip Hamilton, at the time he wasn't in Boston's case. It's 5 guys on the perimeter at one time.
Nobody's in the paint.
Nobody's in the paint. You have Drew, Jason, Brown, Porzingis could be at the top. He could be, you got Derek White. They're all over the place. So, the level of where you help from has changed a lot because the bigs in basketball history have been programmed to help no matter where they are. And that's where the IQ comes in too. You got certain bigs that you know, if I just drive this slot, and they say, don't help strong side shooter in the corner. That is the easiest three. You just know that there's certain bigs that he's going to leave no matter what because he's been programmed his whole life to protect the rim.
Hardest actions to guard in the NBA. No, not necessarily the hardest players to guard, but some of the best players in the world are involved directly in these actions, as you will see when we break it down. And two of the actions that we focus primarily on in this episode are the Golden State split screens and inverted pick and rolls. All right, before we get to the plays that we're going to cover, I want to go over some of the key terminology. All right, the first two words are tilt and fire. I want to be clear here. Every team in the NBA has a code word or a word for a double team. A lot of teams I played on, we had a color scheme. So blue was a double team from the nail. Green was a double team from the baseline side. In this case, tilt and fire represent those colors. Tilt means in a post-up, a double team from the baseline side. Fire means in a post-up, a double team from the nail. And of course, we covered what the nail was in episode 1. Next two terms are hedge and blitz. So these are common terms in pick and roll coverage. Now in the NBA right now, not a lot of teams hedge in pick and rolls. A hedge is simply when the screener's defender jumps out past the screener and tries to reroute the ball handler around the screener's defender, and then the screener's defender will retreat back to the screener. Again, not a lot of teams do that, primarily because everybody can shoot the basketball. Sometimes in inverted pick and rolls, or sometimes as teams are targeting matchups, certain players will hedge. So for instance, if LeBron James is being guarded by Jonathan Kuminga and he wants to get a switch for Steph Curry, he will have whoever is guarding Steph Curry come set a pick and roll. And more times than not, Steph Curry will hedge, reroute LeBron, and then return to his man. That is what a hedge is. A blitz is simply a double team on a pick and roll. All right, a ghost screen, or as LeBron calls it, a bluff screen. A ghost screen is simply when you run in to set a pick and roll and you essentially don't stop, but you just run past the pick and roll and you either go to the three-point line or you slip to the basket. That's essentially what a ghost screen is. It's a ghost screen because you're not really there. You're essentially just trying to create confusion for the two defenders involved in what looks like a pick and roll, but is actually just a ghost screen. Tag and 2-9 go hand in hand. We have a defensive 3-second rule in the NBA. So as a defender, you're only allowed to be in the paint for 3 seconds without guarding anyone. There's two ways around this. You can tag a cutter, which simply means touching a cutter as he goes through the paint. 2-9 is simply a game of cat and mouse. How long can you be in the paint in a help position while not guarding anyone, but not get a 3-second violation? 1,000, 1,000. You're trying to be in and out in 2.9 seconds. That's what we mean by 2-9. So when you're watching a game and you see a player with 1 foot in the paint, 1 foot out of the paint, 1 foot in the paint, 1 foot out of the paint, almost like a tap dance, he's 2-9ing. A couple other simple terms: backside, weak side, strong side. Strong side is simply the side of the floor where the ball is. So if a player is on the right wing, the right side of the floor is the strong side. If a player is positioned in the corner while that player has the ball on the right wing, then the player in the corner is on the strong side of the floor. If a player is in the left corner, opposite the ball, the other side of the court, he's in the weak side. Backside is a little bit interchangeable with weak side. Backside is also a play where a player starts in a corner opposite the ball. Let's say the point guard passes to the 5-man at the top of the key. The player in the corner then receives a pin down and comes along the 3-point line and gets a dribble handoff from the 5-man. That's backside. Think Manu Ginobili in San Antonio. Or, even better, think J.J. Redick in Philadelphia. All right, I want to go over what is called a Varejao screen. A Varejao screen is actually named after LeBron's teammate in Cleveland, Anderson Varejao. And all a Varejao screen is when a screener flips the side and angle of the screen. Let me show you. In this case, the X's are the offensive players, the O's are the defensive players. So in this case, the big man would run into this pick and roll, the defender would follow, and as he gets to the screen, instead of setting the screen on this side where the offensive player would get to his right hand, he simply flips the angle on the screen side and Varejaos it, and the offensive player gets to drive away from the defense, because most of the time this defender of the screener has followed and is assuming he's going to provide help defense on this side. Varejao. Chaos ensues. Okay, blind pig is something that we reference. Blind pig is a triangle offense concept. I had to guard this concept playing against the Lakers. Pau Gasol and Kobe Bryant would oftentimes be the two players involved in this. And then against the Knicks, oftentimes it could be Carmelo Anthony involved, Raymond Felton, Jeremy Lin. Essentially what blind pig is, the ball is right here with this player. Here is your offensive player, the X right here. O's are the defensive player. The X is being denied. This is Kobe Bryant. And this year, this is Jalen Brunson. Isaiah Hartenstein will flash to the elbow. The ball then goes to Isaiah Hartenstein right here. Jalen Brunson, who is being denied, then has a clear path to go receive the ball or get a drop-off pass, dribble handoff, whatever, turn the corner, create havoc. Blind pig. All right. Golden State post splits, a big part of this episode. We have so much visual component to this. You guys hopefully will understand this at the end. Again, this is another triangle concept. Let's do a 2-man post split to start. How about that? So here's the ball. The ball goes into the post. Now, this pass for Golden State is not to score. This pass is to get Steph Curry and Klay Thompson into the action. So Steph can split with Klay Thompson. Klay can back cut towards the basket. He can curl towards the basket, or he can come top for 3. And that's only one option. There are many options in this offense. Let's say Kevon Looney wants to get involved here. They throw it in to Draymond Green. Steph goes towards Klay Thompson. Maybe Klay Thompson curls to the basket. Kevon Looney then cleans up Steph. Ball comes out to Steph. That's post splits. It's impossible to guard. The other thing I just wanted to tell you guys, on this episode, for these drawings, Mav drew these. I did not draw these courts. This clip went out on social. America's Play, baseline out of bounds, pick the picker, whatever you want to call it. This guy underneath the basket on a baseline out of bounds play, B-O-B, baseline out of bounds. There should be an extra O, but who cares? It's just B-O-B. This guy right here, that's the shooter. This is Kyle Korver. This is Steph Curry. This is Ray Allen. This is Duncan Robinson. He's going to set a back screen right here, a rip screen for a bigger wing usually. Maybe you get a switch, maybe you don't. Maybe you get a layup here underneath the basket. This guy in the corner over here, this is Bam. This is DeAndre Jordan with me. This is Joel Embiid with me. This big guy then goes and sets a screen for the shooter to come off towards the 3-point line. So if you don't get a layup, you might get a 3 in the corner.
America's play. Pick the picker. The other concept that we talk a lot about this episode is inverted pick and roll. Pick and roll, as most basketball fans know it, is simply a ball handler, usually a point guard, getting a ball screen, so a live ball dribble, from a big guy, a 5-man, right? A center. Think Kenny Smith and Akeem Olajuwon. Think John Stockton and Karl Malone. Think Kobe and Shaq, right? It's a pick and roll. A normal pick and roll, the smaller player has the ball, the bigger player sets a screen for him. Inverted pick and roll is simply when you invert that. In this case, a bigger player has the ball, and a smaller player, oftentimes a really good shooter, sets a ball screen for the bigger player. Very rare that big guys can do this, but certainly a lot of them can. Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, Anthony Davis, Giannis, of course. Bigger wings will also run inverted pick and rolls. So this is Duncan Robinson setting a pick and roll for Jimmy Butler. This is me setting a screen for Ben Simmons. That is an inverted pick and roll. We actually had a call in Philadelphia. It was called 12 rub rifle. So 12 was just a 1-2 pick and roll. I'm the 2-man. Ben was the 1-man. Rub was our name for a high pick and roll, which means in the center of the court. Rifle, I'll get to that in a second. So an inverted pick and roll would be the smaller player setting a screen for Ben Simmons, right? If I set a good screen, Ben could get all the way to the basket. Sometimes I would slip to 3, though. In that case, Ben would throw me the ball. And sometimes, like against San Antonio Spurs late in the game, I would make the shot and get fouled and have a 4-point play to get a game winner. But other times, this would be Joel Embiid. This is the rifle part. The rifle just means chase action. Sometimes the definition of a concept is in the word. If I said go chase the ball, what are you going to do? You're going to pass the ball and run after it. So 12 rub rifle is a inverted high pick and roll followed by chase action. So if I didn't have a shot, I would throw the ball to Joel Embiid and we'd go right into chase dribble handoff. 12 rub rifle. Miami Heat, Game 4, 2018 playoffs.
A non-favorable defender on a great player, if that great player knows he's going to make the reads, they're going to get threes anyways because they're going to drive, there's going to be a help, and then there's going to be a numbers game. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. So it has to come to a point, it's like, what are we willing to give up? Not what are we willing to stop. You can't stop great guys. You can't stop great players. Just hope they miss. But what are we willing to give up? And then you have to just tip your hat. Like these scoring outputs is insane. I wish I was back in like 2012 right now.
With the young legs,
Yeah,
with the young tires.
Young tires.
Yeah. The tires with only 11,000
Yeah.
pounds. Switchable lineups. Like,
Yeah.
so you have 5 guys that are capable.
Yeah.
Is how creative teams have gotten
Yeah.
with defeating the switches.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 2 of the hardest actions to guard to me right now are ghost screens with a great shooter
Yeah.
and running into a pick and roll. It's not a traditional slip.
Right.
You run into a pick and roll, you touch the guy's back, and then you get behind the defense.
Behind the defense. Uh-huh.
And if you have a guy like Kristaps Porzingis or Jason Tatum that is doing that, you can't guard that. So you could be like, oh yeah, we're going to switch. Teams have now figured out ways to exploit switching.
I know Washington is in the shitter, but even last night in our matchup last night, we got to a switching lineup, but Kuz was hip tapping AR, and we were calling switch, and AR two times couldn't get back to Kuz, and he was able to get into the lane. He missed one, made one, but exactly what you're just saying. Like, teams are figuring out ways to, when the switches happen, how can I exploit a switch?
That's interesting. You brought up the hip tap too. So like on the ghost screen, you called it a bluff screen.
Yeah.
The ghost screen, like you guys used to, when I was in New Orleans, KCP, I'd guard him. He would do this all the time. So let's say we are in a switch defensively. We're in a switch. If the guy slips on a ghost screen, my job is to go with him.
Yeah, call square.
Right.
Square.
Right.
Slip.
But offensive players, as they're running up in the screen, they tap the guy on the hip. So you're supposed to switch on contact. When you feel the contact, you think it's a switch.
Yeah,
Now the ball
and I'll open up and
I'm
it's
doing my job because he slipped, so I'm going with him. That's why it's hard.
That's why it's hard.
In real time, it's like, yeah, we can have all these rules, but then you gotta do it in real
That's why
time.
the NBA is the best league in the world. That's why it's hard for me to watch my son play college basketball.
You want to go there?
Watching you. I love Duke now because K is my guy now, obviously, for obvious reasons.
Obviously.
But it is hard watching a 40-minute college basketball game. It's hard. I get more anxiety and I sweat more watching college basketball, especially my son now, than I've ever done in my life.
I still watch legitimate teams, ranked teams. They will run a play, and their best player will get the ball on the wing, and they will have a non-threat big man posting up on the same side, and the guard or the wing will drive into the occupied post. And I'm like, you guys, it's 2024. We can all watch YouTube. There's a wealth of information out there. Why are we still playing this way?
Well, I've never understood why a coach will throw the ball into a post with his big that has no business with the ball in the post. The only time the ball should go into the post to the big, if he's automatically, as soon as he catches it, flatten the defense, he goes right back into a DHO uphill.
Uphill DHO.
Roll. If he's not a pocket passer, you can't throw it to the rim, or his job is to just shrink the defense because his role was so dynamic. I watch college games and I see guys throw the ball in the post to guys and they turn around and shoot a jump shot or a running left-hand jump hook.
This one drives me crazy. You see like a few young NBA guys that will get like because we don't post anymore unless you're like Joel Embiid and Jokic, right? You see young NBA guys, they'll get a rebound and the defense will be on them and they'll shoot. You know the shot I'm talking about, the big guys shoot. It's like, it's not a real shot, man.
It's not a real shot.
It's not a real shot.
It's not a real shot.
There's one other thing you can do in the post, which leads me to, God, fucking segues so good, man. Concepts that exist. So we don't, the Chicago cut, which was when you throw it in the post, the guard would cut through, screen in the middle of the paint. For the big guy, you don't want to switch that. If you do switch it, you know, Pekovic from Minnesota would catch the ball at 5 feet against me and just jump hook, right? Easy breezy. Now, teams don't really run the Chicago cut anymore. The two things that they still run, blind pig, which New York runs for Brunson all the time, where Hartenstein or Mitchell Robinson flashes to the elbow. You deny Jalen Brunson, he's getting that back cut going downhill. They'll get into the step-up pick and rolls with blind pig action, right? And then the Golden State post splits. The post splits. I have been wanting to have this conversation with you for so many years because I have said the Golden State post splits, specifically with that team, is like the hardest action to guard. I was doing research on something else the other day, and I was looking up because I was for a Boston game because Porzingis has the highest efficiency in the tracking era for points per direct post up. Right? He's every time they switch smaller guy on him, he's mashing whatever. Draymond was at the top of the list for a bunch of years. In 18-19, he had the highest efficiency on post-ups of any player in the NBA. And you're like, well, Draymond doesn't score in the post. But they're throwing him the ball, and either Steph and Clay are running their action. We saw back in 22, Wiggins would be the screener, slip for the dunk. They also involve the big. So Steph and Clay are doing their little dance. Looney then comes and cleans it up.
Because the big, this guard Looney is sitting in the damn paint.
Exactly. It's the hardest thing to guard. You guarded it 4 straight finals. What are your thoughts on how to defend it?
When Sean Livingston, Harrison Barnes, when everything went haywire, when it was fucking Kevin Durant over there and another shooter, it was like impossible to guard because you couldn't help from the weak side because now Draymond is such a great IQ player. If you tag from the guy on the weak side, he throws it all the way across court. You can actually see, there's a play that you can watch on YouTube probably where they were taking the ball out in SOB.
Side of bounds.
Not son of a bitch, sorry guys. Side out of bounds. And I was getting ready, I was 2-9ing on the strong side because they were about to get into some split action. Steph takes the ball out and throws it all the way to the weak side corner by their bench. And I try to close out to KD because I'm looking, trying to shrink the floor. He throws it from the sideline out of bounds all the way across. I close out, slips, falls on the ground. KD dunks the ball. But back to your point there, I don't understand. Well, I do understand why most teams don't run it because they don't have
They don't have the personnel.
They don't have the personnel.
They don't have.
There are certain teams that
They don't have the personnel.
They don't have the personnel.
They don't have.
There are certain teams that, like right now, Mike Brown in Sacramento is kind of running some split action.
Yeah.
He has those shooters. He has obviously Kevin Huerter. He has the kid Keegan Murray who can shoot the piss out the ball, and also the speed of De'Aaron Fox. They play a lot of pinch posts with DeMonis, who's now triple-double threat every game.
You need a passer like Sabonis.
You have to have,
You have to have a passer like Sabonis or Draymond.
Yeah, exactly. You're like DeMonis, Draymond, Marc Gasol back in his day. Certain guys, obviously Joker, he's one of a kind, but you have to have the personnel.
The thing with the post splits for me is like, you can, let's say they involved Looney.
What do they call you?
You brought up the flubbing, that ATO play.
Yeah.
I don't care if you miss a shot. I don't even care if you take a bad shot. I've never yelled at a kid or gotten on a kid for taking any shot.
Right.
I never have. Now, I may, after a game, be like, hey, we were up 7 with 42 seconds. You didn't need to shoot a contested step back 3. We could have just dribbled the clock out, right? What drives me crazy, though, is when I draw an ATO and then we go out and they forget it. It's like, dude, it's been 10 seconds. My big thing with them now is like, don't worry about what I'm drawing up. Just watch you.
That's it.
Pay attention to you.
That's it. Just watch you.
Just watch
That's
you.
you.
Anyways, so let's say you involve Kevon Looney. I got to become a smarter basketball player.
Yeah.
To win at the highest level.
And he did it. There's a lot of things, other things I would do in basketball too. Like there's a couple other coverages I would do. The pick the picker, BOB. Not bombs over Baghdad, but baseline out of bounds.
Yeah. America's play.
The America's play.
Yeah.
You have the guard, you have the best shooter sitting in the middle of the lane.
Yeah.
You have the biggest wing sitting at the top.
Yep.
5 is on the strong side. You have the point guard taking it out.
Yeah. And then the weak side corner.
Yeah. When no one ever, it's not many times that the guy, the wing that's coming down the middle gets that pass. Because in theory, if you're guarding the ball, 1,000, 1,000, take away the basket and then jump out, right? To take away the shot. I've always wanted to, no coach has ever allowed me to do this or given me the freedom to do this. The guy that's guarding the ball, when he says 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, why doesn't he just take the guard that's coming out for the pick-the-picker? And the guard that's guarding the pick-the-picker guy just falls right to the guy that's taking the ball out.
Yeah.
You go 1,000, 1,000. JJ Redick is flying off left, right, where you know he's dangerous. He can shoot straight up and down if he wants to, or he's going to fade if he wants to as well, maybe kick you.
It's my natural shooting motion. It's my natural shooting motion.
I'm guarding the ball. I just take JJ, and the guard who was chasing you just falls right to the guy that's taking the ball out. That's one. That's not. We can talk about that.
So no. So what's interesting about that? I like that. I'll tell you why. Because like someone who ran that play, right? So whether I did pick and roll.
Mm-hmm.
So Giannis, fucking Jokic now, Embiid now, all these guys, they take the weakest defender,
yeah.
They take a shooter, whatever it may be, and they go set an on-ball screen for the big. Last night in the Knicks game, Draymond had it at the top, and Steph was in the paint to go set the high pick, to go set this inverted pick and roll. Now, Steph has a number of options here. He can slip out, he can set the pick,
yeah.
They can go back to a dribble handoff if you pass to Steph. Like, their two-man dance is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
They decided to top block Steph, so he couldn't get to the screen. And Steph
just screened him.
Steph screened him into Draymond's guy. Draymond got a wide open dunk.
Yeah.
That is a insanely difficult action to guard. Fucking last year in the Western Conference Finals, I can't remember which game it was, but it was in the fourth quarter. They ran that 3 times with Murray as the screener, Jokic as the ball handler
On the right wing.
right wing, right in front of the bench.
Yep, right in front of the bench. Yep.
How would you guard that?
There's a couple ways you can.
From episode 1, floppy is a catch and shoot play. It's very simple. On either side of the lane, there's 2 bigs. The point guard has the ball up top, and the 2 wing players are underneath the basket. The shooter can come out either side, make a play. In the context of this conversation, it's funny because LeBron James never runs floppy. So in this episode, we talk about corner splits. Think the Sacramento Kings with Chris Webber and Vlade Divac as the passers, Mike Bibby, Peja, Bobby Jackson, Doug Christie, those guys as the shooters and cutters. A more recent example was Rick Adelman when he was in Minnesota in the mid-2010s. Kevin Love, Kevin Martin, Ricky Rubio. That's what these guys ran a lot of. Corner splits is very simple. By the way, I apologize. A number of people have pointed out that the defensive player in a corner, the ball handler brings it up a side. In this case, we're going to bring it up the left side. And the big, i.e. Vlade Divac, Kevin Love, Chris Webber, is somewhere in the vicinity of the elbow or high post area. You can occupy the weak side in a number of ways. Have a guy in the corner, have a guy high. You can have a guy in the corner or have a guy in the dunker spot. Because I don't love the dunker spot, we'll put the other guy in the high quadrant. Point guard brings it up. He would hit the big, Chris Webber, Vlade Divac, at the high post. He then goes into split action. And as a reminder, split action is just when 2 offensive players go to screen for each other off the ball. And again, they can cut, they can curl, they can set a back screen or a rip screen. A rip screen is the same thing as a back screen. Oftentimes, again, the meaning is in the word. If I was to say, I'm going to go set a back screen for you, where would I screen your defender? I would screen his back. That's the same thing as a rip screen. So in this case, this is Peja. This is Mike Bibby. Mike Bibby can go set a down screen for Peja. Peja has a number of options here. He can curl to the basket. He can back cut. He can chase the basketball. He can come for a dribble handoff. In this case, let's say Mike Bibby sets a great screen. Peja just comes off. Vlade hits him. He hits a wide open jump. That's corner splits. All right, spread pick and roll. All that means is there's nobody in the dunker spot. There's nobody in the paint. All 5 players are spread across the perimeter. Depending on where the pick and roll is located, let's say it is up top, the ball handler here. You have a guy in each corner. This is a right-handed player, so we want to go to the single side. So we'll put this guy in the high quadrant, and then the screener would then come set a pick and roll. Again, everyone is spread out. Nobody is inside the paint. The opposite of this, of course, would be, let's say this guy, we'll eliminate him and put him in the dunker spot. That is no longer a spread pick and roll. That's just a pick and roll. 5 out, delay. Again, the meaning is in the word. 5 out. 5 outside of the 3-point line. 5 out. This is, I think, one of the biggest evolution in today's NBA. No longer see 2 people run to either block. As you did for a long time in the NBA, you still see it some in college, you certainly see it some in high school. 5 out is how most NBA teams play. It's not necessarily a play as it is a set and a concept. Everybody sort of run. You get 2 guys in the corner, 1 guy on the wing, ball handler bringing it up, and then the trail guy who got the rebound or who took it out is running down the center of the floor. Okay? Within that, you can get to a number of options. You can play a step-up pick and roll here. You can run a stagger screen away, a stagger screen. Again, it's in the word. 2 players, a stagger. 1 screen, 2 screen. You can run away action. Away action, again, meaning is in the word. You go away from the basketball, you screen away. Like this, boom. That's DeAndre Jordan screening for me. That's Brooke Lopez screening for Kyle Korver. That's just away action. A lot of teams
will hit the 5-man though at the top, and then they will get into split action. Delay is just another name for 5-out. Again, because I've got a white piece of paper, not a whiteboard, I can't go over every single option out of this, but this is the essential idea of 5-out or delay. Okay, the short roll, this is one of the most important concepts in today's NBA. It's a big part of this conversation as well. Let's just go back to that spread pick and roll, okay? So within that spread pick and roll, the 5-man is going to set a screen for the ball handler to get to his right hand, okay? And let's say the help side is here, strong side, ball side is there, the big is up in the pick and roll, and the guards and the defender of the point guard is right there. As this guy comes off, they put 2 on the ball. The short roll is essentially the area between, call it the restricted area and the 3-point line. So at any point in time, if you get the ball to the 5-man in this area, that forces a reaction from the defense. Now this guy almost always will pull over as the low man. He's the lowest guy on the floor. He's the low man. That's his responsibility to protect the rim. This guy, as we discuss, sometimes will drop here, and he will essentially have responsibility on these 2 guys. Once the ball is in this area, this is the short roll area, anywhere, again, between restricted and the 3-point line. The short roll area is where today's big man makes plays. A lot of guys are not shooting necessarily right here. They're not short rolling to shoot this shot. They are short rolling to either shoot a floater, a la Jokic, to make this cut, this pass to this cutter, or to spray out to this man for a 3. That's the short roll. Another concept we talk about is the slot cut. Just to be clear here, the slot is another word for the high quadrant. It's another word for the wing. In a spread pick and roll, the slot is considered the guy on the wing. You have the corner, and the 2 people in pick and roll. So this would be the slot right here. The slot cut is simply a time cut. Let's say the ball handler turns the corner, the big rolls, the defense reacts. It's a time cut out of this slot to get the ball in this area. Paint, rim, whatever, go dunk the basketball. Now, you can also, let's say you're posting the ball here. You can have a slot cut out of the post. A slot cut is just a cut from this slot area. Thank you guys again for watching, for listening. What was the 2-man game?
Yeah.
What were the reads?
The cutting.
Slot cut?
The slot cuts. The slot cuts. The slot cuts. It unlocked the slot cuts. It unlocked exactly what myself and D-Wade thrive on. Dribble penetration, slot cut. Pick and roll happens, you tag, slot cut. It unlocked all that. And we all know how great D-Wade is on the baseline. It's hard to cut behind the defense when X5 is standing there the whole time because, the offensive 5 is there. So, you hit me on the pocket pass now, I get the pocket pass from Chalmers or from Norris Cole, and now Bosh is in a strong corner. Are you going to leave him or not? If you do, he's going to tag you. And if not, when I roll, now you got X3 or X2 tagging on me on the roll. And 9 times out of 10, that guy that's playing the elbow that's supposed to X to the corner, he's Xing out to the 3-point line, and D-Wade slashing right behind him. It unlocked so much for our offense. And it gave myself and D-Wade in transition, we had this thing called the Mack truck lane. So basically from the block to the block. So say, for instance, we stand on the free throw line.
Yeah.
You got 1 block on one side, 1 block on that side.
I can picture a basketball court, yeah.
We do it for the viewers. I'm not questioning JJ's expertise.
No, I know what you're saying.
First day of training camp, we had that whole thing taped off. The bigs were not allowed to run in between the Mack truck lane. From the first day of training camp all the way to game 1. Prohibited. You're not allowed to. You got, and if I'm bringing the ball up, and the big is behind me, he can't cross the court. He has to run wide behind. This is all. Spo is like, he's that damn good.
Some Twitter sleuth will correct me on that. Mind, when I think of 5-out or delay, I think of the Miami Heat with Chris Bosh. As maybe it wasn't the originator, but the first time I'm like, oh, this is different. This is happening. Was the Miami Heat with Chris Bosh.
Yeah.
And it changed everything.
It changed everything. Changed the whole team. Then we added Ray.
Shane.
Added Shane. Added Mike Miller. We added the spacing. And CB could pass. He could rebound and push. There wasn't many fives at that time that was rebounding and pushing the break. You see it all the time now.
Right. You see Bam. Bam does it.
Bam does it all the time.
Jokic, of
Yeah,
course.
the MVP of the league, Jokic does it. It's like CB was pushing the break. Okay, if he ain't have nothing early in trans, boom, right to a DHO. Second side, swing. Like, he was just smart. But, I mean, obviously, when you move from one position where you're so dominant, you think of CB in Toronto where he mainly played the 4. Almost, probably 95% of the time played the 4 and averaged 25 and 10 or 12.
The ball exclusively went through him in the mid-post.
Every single time.
On either block, really.
Yeah.
But it's timing, the play, how it works.
We actually,
Because by the way, it's now part of every team's vernacular, and
yeah.
every team runs it now. It becomes programmed into everybody's reads, pick and roll.
Yeah, and it used to not be a live cut. I go back and watch college basketball, and there's so many fluff cuts or cuts that don't do anything. It's like, why are you making a cut towards the basket and you're not even looking at the damn ball? So the slot cut, I started to make the slot cut when Mike Brown took over for us in Cleveland. We actually used to have a play. When we got Mo Williams was one fast, quick motherfucker off pick and rolls, and another guy that could shoot the 3 off the pick and roll. Slot. We would have a shooter in a strong corner going same side as him. And either Verjao or Z come set the step up. You know what? Take that back. I'm sorry. No strong side shooter. Strong side shooter in the weak corner. Only Mo's job was to race the big. Race the big, get around the big, get around to the baseline. And at the same time, as soon as I would see Mo race the big to the baseline, Anderson, Verjao, or Z would come set a rip screen for me, blind. The guy that's guarding me, and the corner man couldn't leave because it was a corner shooter, and I was slot cut at the same time. It's easy clip. We could find that clip easy. And Mo would drop it to me. And I would either dunk it home or finish it or whatever the case may be. We actually put that in that was one of our ATOs. And then when I got to Miami, I started to just see a lot of guys peeking. A lot of guys with D-Wade had a ball, obviously attracting a lot of eyes. He's a driver, whatever the case may be. Instead of me standing out and shooting threes, which at times I wasn't always comfortable with shooting threes, I would see guys peeking, and as soon as I would see my guy turn his head, I would slot cut.
This is part of the reason it's really hard to guard spread pick and roll.
Yep.
And we'll put the clips up as well. But if the X's here are the offensive player, right?
Correct.
And you're running this angle pick and roll.
Correct.
And let's say the big is in the drop.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And this is the guard. This is the guard, right?
Yep.
So if this guard turns the corner here,
Yep.
right, on the big, Damian Lillard does this better than anybody, especially on the
Especially
left
going
side.
left. Yep.
Especially going left,
Yep.
right? This guy has to make some sort of decision.
Yep, he's coming to 2-9.
This guy
on
has
his
to get
drop.
into an X position. And who the fuck is guarding this guy?
Nobody.
Nobody, right?
Nobody.
So
That's the position I'm in a lot.
the slot cut.
The slot.
Yeah. The other one is this, which Golden State, when I think of this cut, I think of Golden State, which is essentially same formation. Here's the defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you put 2 on the ball on Steph Curry and Draymond Green.
Which is the worst thing you can do.
Right. This guy's gonna have to be the low man. So Draymond rolls, Steph hits him right here. This guy drops. What's gonna happen right here, LeBron? As Draymond Green takes his dribble into the paint.
It's a lob.
It's a lob every
It's a
single
lob
time.
every single time. And
It's a lob every single time.
you
You can't you literally can't put 2 on the ball.
you can't. See, everyone thinks that putting 2 on the ball takes Steph out of the play. The problem that you don't understand is that you're now unlocking Draymond's superpower offensively.
Yeah.
Draymond's superpower offensively is the 4-on-3 game. You put 2 on the ball. Now Draymond has his 4-on-3, and I'm going to have Iguodala in the pass. Now Wiggs and Kuminga, they're going to be in that opposite corner. And if you help up too early, there's going to be a lob, and that is demoralizing. And the number one thing, it's so much momentum on half-court lob. So much momentum.
When we used to, that's the worst court I've ever seen, but I'm going to do the same formation real quick, the same set. So, like, when we used to teach or learn
Yeah.
how to guard spread pick and roll,
Mm-hmm.
right? You would do this drill. I'm sure you did this drill. So, here's the defense, right?
Yep.
Here's the defense. And as this guy comes off,
Yep.
the low man pulls
Yep.
over. Here's the basket.
Yep.
The
He's
low
the
man
big,
pulls
he's the
over.
one
This guy drops.
Yep.
And the drill was always this. This guy,
Yep.
the ball handler,
Yep.
would skip
Skip
it,
it corner,
and
X.
you would literally
X
make
out
an
and
X.
get back. Yep.
But nobody does that anymore.
Yeah.
They hit the short roll.
Yeah.
And the short rollers now in today's NBA, like if you're a big coming into the NBA right now, what's your player development program look like? It's
As a
literally
big.
playing out of the short roll.
Yeah, playing out of the short roll.
Especially if you're Jared Allen for
Yeah.
the last 5 years, what is he doing?
Short roll.
Short roll.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, they're going to attract so much. You have to be able to play out of the short roll. And when you play out of the short roll, it's not for you to score. Yes, you have the ability to score, but you have to read the game. You have to read the game.
Think about you guys probably run different stuff, but in a way, what makes OKC so good is their ability to drive the basketball
Yeah.
and then kick and then drive the basketball and then kick. And they did this last year.
Yep.
This is how they played last year
Yep.
when they were 42 and 40.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, Chet comes in
Yep.
and it unlocks everything.
Yep.
In the same way, I'm not comparing Chet to Chris Bosh as
No.
or
But to unlock the most, yeah,
but
how you
to
get the most out
unlock
of the team.
how you maximize the offense,
Yeah.
you need Chet on that team.
For sure. No question about it. He changes the dynamic of everything. You know, they have a one set that they run off all free throws where Chet takes the ball out. They send 2 guys to the other end. Both of them sit in the corner. And Chet takes the ball out. And now Shea he has it on the right wing or the left wing or whatever the case may be. And normally, the X5 job is to load to the ball and stop Shea from driving the 45, driving the slot. That's your job. Load, get to the body, load. OKC now, because there's another guy back there, they're at the same time that the big is trying to load on Shea, there's a guard that's flaring Chet to the opposite slot. You know how hard that is? They're flaring a 7-footer to the opposite slot.
Right.
I mean, there's ways to guard it. I'm not going to say it right now because we may see him in the playoffs.
In this episode is the screen assist. Assists are tracked and have been tracked for decades in the NBA. An assist is when a player passes the ball to another player and that player scores. A screen assist is simply acknowledging and documenting that a player has set a screen for another player who then scores. So it's Kevin Garnett with a wide pin down screen for Ray Allen, who comes off that screen and hits a jumper. It's Derek Lively setting a high pick and roll screen for Luka Doncic, who then makes a three-pointer. A screen assist is just an opportunity to get your teammate open, who then scores. One of the best screen assisters in the entire NBA is Rudy Gobert, and he has been for a number of years. He actually leads the NBA in screen assists. This is a stat that is tracked through advanced stats. However, I think this should be a box score stat, and I explain why in this episode. If a player passes the puck to another player, who then passes the puck to a goal scorer, and the scorer scores the goal, he gets an assist. A hockey assist is simply the pass that leads to a pass that leads to a score. For example, in high pick and roll, if the ball handler comes off and makes a pass to the big man on the short roll, which we covered in episode 3, and the short roller passes to the wing, and the wing guy swings to the corner for an open 3, then the big man in the short roll who made the first pass, that's a hockey assist. So the Gortat screen. This is named after one of my former teammates, Marcin Gortat, who popularized this type of screen and this concept in the modern NBA. So if we talk about a spread pick and roll right here, and you have 5 offensive players and 5 defensive players, in today's NBA, the X5, the 5 guarding the 5 men on the offense, he's oftentimes in drop coverage. Drop coverage is simply the big man in a pick and roll dropping into the paint. He's not at the level. The level of the screen is at the level of the offensive player setting the screen. Drop coverage is simply your back off of the level. So a Gortat screen is when the offensive player comes around the pick and roll. The defensive player goes over the top of the pick and roll. And at this point, the offensive player has an advantage, and as LeBron calls it, a hostage dribble, or putting a player in jail. He keeps the defender on his back. Instead of rolling to the rim, this screener rolls into another screen on the drop coverage big, which allows the ball handler to get all the way to the basket. That is something that Marcin Gortat ran a ton with John Wall. Something I first really noticed when I went to Philadelphia and I played against the Boston Celtics a bunch. Daniel Tice, Al Horford, excellent Gortat screeners. That is the Gortat screen. Another concept we talk about specifically as it relates to Nikola Jokic is court mapping. Court mapping is simply knowing where everyone is on the court and the tendencies of those players based upon NBA concepts. So here's an example. Let's say this is Nikola Jokic with the basketball, and this is 2 Nuggets players going into a high split. Again, a split is just when 2 off-ball players go to screen for each other. Let's say that this is Reggie Jackson, and Reggie Jackson sets a screen on Christian Braun, and Christian Braun cuts to the basket. Nikola Jokic has mapped the court. He knows this help defender is not really involved in the play. He's reading what these 2 defenders are doing. He also knows that as this cutter cuts to the basket, chances are this help defender, because he's been taught this way, is going to help on this cut. Whether it is a scoring cut or not, he's going to help. He has awareness of this cut. So court mapping is simply, I know this guy's going to be open. I'm going to make this skip pass for a 3, Peyton Watson 3. That's court mapping. It's simply knowing where everyone is on the court. Another example of that from Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic in a post-up right here against the New York Knicks. Josh Hart right here as a help defender. Aaron Gordon in the dunker spot in this area. Josh Hart coming from the baseline side on a double. Nikola Jokic knows that Aaron Gordon is in the dunker spot, assuming he can get inside position. He just makes an over-the-head pass right to Aaron Gordon for a layup. That's court mapping. Spatial awareness. So a flood typically happens on a wing isolation. So let's say this is Jason Tatum. He's got a clear side. He's the offensive player. He's the O. He's got a clear side on offense. And let's say the other Boston players are all either at the top of the key or on the weak side, which we explained in a prior episode. Flooding simply means that the low man, the man closest to the rim, floods the lane and comes across the lane. That is flooding right here. So now Jason Tatum, instead of being isolated alone against one defender, has a second defender. All the other defenders on the weak side then get in help position. But this is the guy right here who comes across the lane and floods. Boxes and elbows, again, sometimes the meaning of the concept is simply in the word. If you look at a court, typically the lowest hash mark is a box. This part of the court on the lane, these are called the elbows right here. So boxes and elbows simply means that the help defense is stationed at the boxes and elbows. So think about an isolation at the top of the key. Let's say, again, it's Jason Tatum. He's isolating at the top of the key against the defender. Boston is spread out, 5 out. These defenders are at boxes and elbows. I want to thank you guys again for watching and listening to Mind the Game podcast with Knight. On your game with the Warriors, I said, I think screen assists should be in the box score. I'm well aware that we can track screen assists. That is an official tracking stat. Mm-hmm. I want it to be a box score stat.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it goes back to role. Basketball, for some reason, we all have these like interchangeable roles at times.
Mm-hmm.
Other sports, we don't.
Agree.
So if Jason Kelce doesn't allow a sack and has a couple pancake blocks, then he was awesome. Nobody's saying, fuck, Jason, why didn't you catch a pass today?
Right.
Why didn't you score a touchdown, Jason?
Yeah, for sure.
We need screen assists.
For sure.
Like, can we capture how good Rudy Gobert is if we had screen assists in a box score? If Steph goes off for 42 and Draymond has 7 assists, 7 rebounds, 7 points,
And 7 screen assists.
and 7 screen assists, does that better capture how good Draymond Green is?
Yes. Because his impact don't always show up in the box score, like you're saying. Hockey assists. Guys that pass open decent shots for great shots.
Right. Or understand what the next pass is going to do.
I'll give you a prime example right now.
Let's hear it.
Back to blitz and pick and rolls.
Yeah.
There's certain teams in our league that we know will blitz a pick and roll, try to get the ball out of D'Lo's hands, try to get the ball out of Austin's hands, because they're pretty damn good if you let them get a little, get some space, give them where they can see vision, whatever. A lot of teams have been trying to blitz us lately. The best play for them to make when you know that's happening with 80 setting the screen is the throw ahead pass.
To the corner. Or to the wing.
Or to the
depending
wing.
on which
Depending
way
on
you're
which-
going.
yeah. As soon as you come off and you have 2 guys on the ball, 80s diving, that means there's a 2-sided on the same side that's going to tag 80, which you just drew up.
Yeah. I can draw it up again.
Yeah, draw it up again.
You want the throw ahead pass to the slot.
The throw ahead pass to the slot.
Come in the middle. Yeah.
Come in middle. It is the easiest play to recognize, and now you put the onus on the guy in the slot to make the proper read. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the guy that's sitting right in front of him, right in the corner.
It's interesting too, because you talk about the high